Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to bring this local planning agency meeting of October 22nd to begin the meeting.
I'd like to remind the chair that we do the pledge first.
Yes, it's on the list.
Oh, I'm
We'll
sorry.
get into that, yeah.
Sorry.
And we're starting in at 7:01. And I'd like to ask everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then, Lauren, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Chairman David Leland. Vice Chair Ross Schillingford.
Here.
Commissioner June Perrin. Here. Commissioner Philip Marquis.
Present.
Commissioner Ray Nazareth.
Here.
Adam Miller, alternate 1. And Gary Specht, alternate 2.
Thank you. And then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the June 25th, 2019 local planning agency meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Tuesday, June 25th local planning and agenda meeting.
So any seconds?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So motion passes 4-0. Motion to approve, I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes of the September 24th, 2019 local planning agency meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as read.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Okay. All right, so items for discussion. Okay, the first item on discussion is application number 19-0120, Southern Boulevard Properties, Part 2. The applicant, Urban Design Kilday Studios, is requesting a development agreement to allow for reduced unit sizes for a proposed 401 unit multifamily development that has a proposed building intensity of 13.66 dwelling units per acre, 1,003 projected residents, and the proposed maximum building height of 42.33 feet, located on a 29.356 plus or minus acre parcel of land located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of State Road 7, US 441. So I guess, Kevin, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I do. If you'll direct your attention to the monitor, the site is highlighted in red. It's on the western border or western side of the property. As you'll recall, this is a master plan development. This is pod number 2 of that development. You did see pod 3, which is over in this area here, probably back in May. They also did a developer's agreement with the Village of Royal Palm Beach for unit sizes, and if you look at the slide that's on the screen, it sums up what the request is. The village code requires certain unit square footages for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom apartment units. The code required minimum unit size for a 1 bedroom is 1,000 square feet. For a 2 bedroom, it's 1,200, and for a 3 bedroom, it's 1,350. And in this column, you'll see for a 1 bedroom, the applicant is proposing 2 different model types, one at 719 square feet and another at 806 square feet, for a difference of 281 square feet for the smaller one and 194 square feet for the larger one. The two-bedroom, they're asking for 1,098 square feet and 1,141 square feet, which is a difference of 102 square feet for the smaller and a difference of about 69 square feet for the larger one. And for the three-bedroom, they're proposing a unit size of 1,215 and another one with 1,287, where 1,350 is required, which is a difference of 135 square feet for the smaller and 63 square feet for the larger. We also have standards for the average unit size per building, which should be 1,200 square feet. They have a number of different types of buildings that they're proposing, and building type 1 has a proposed average of 805 square feet. Building type 2 has a proposed average of 1,108 square feet. Building type 3 has a proposed average size of 1,076 square feet. Type 4 has 961 square feet. Type 4 modified has 953 square feet. And type 5 has 1,782 square feet. The overall average unit size for all units is 1,133 square feet, which is approximately 167 square feet smaller than the required average. Having said that, again, there's the site. Some other properties, Phase 1 North, which is not part of the overall master plan, but it was the first phase. They asked for unit sizes of 719 and 806 square feet. For the one bedroom, for the two bedroom, 1,099 and 1,141, and for the three bedroom, 1,215 and 1,287. And that development agreement was approved. Excuse me. And then also the Enclave was another apartment development that is south and east of the subject site. They got a developer's agreement approved for 800 square feet for the one bedroom, 1,000 square feet for the two bedroom, and 1,250 square feet for the three bedroom, with an average unit size of 1,000 square feet. Village staff is requesting a recommendation of denial be forwarded to the village council regarding application 19102, the development agreement, and its associated development agreement. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is here as well and has a presentation if you'd like to see that.
Kevin, could you just
Any
do me
questions
one-
from the board before?
Can you give me the figures for, I have the Enclave, and what was the other one you gave us?
The Enclave, the other one was
that.
Pod 1.
Pot?
Pod 1, which is the one that is currently built on the west side of the bridge.
Okay, that's part one, okay.
Yep.
So a quick question. So there were a couple other developments that were approved with unit sizes less, and the council approved those.
They did.
Do you recall if those were moved forward with, what was staff's recommendation on those? If
I believe it was for denial as well.
It was for denial as well.
And the basis for the denial is that it doesn't meet code.
That it doesn't meet code, yes.
All right, and I guess we'll ask if any other questions from the board for Kevin? And then if not, any comments or presentation from the applicant?
Good evening. Allie Palmer with Urban Design Kildare Studios. Tonight, representing TLH or TLI on the Tuttle Royale project. And as you know, we typically run through this development agreement first before you actually get to see the plans, so it's a little bit awkward, but we will try our best to answer any questions that you might have. So as Kevin mentioned, I won't run through all of these numbers again because up on the screen is pretty much exactly what you just saw in his presentation. But we are requesting a development agreement for smaller unit sizes than the code permits. Also, as Kevin mentioned, we have seen this previously approved by the council and also proposed to your board earlier this year for Pod 3. We had proposed smaller unit sizes, very similar sizes to what we're proposing before you tonight for Pod 2. Pod 3 is actually also within the same master plan, Tuttle Royale, which you'll see on the next agenda. And then I also have Phase 1 North, which is the related site that is not within the master plan, but adjacent to, which Kevin just showed you as well. As far as the unit sizes, very similar with the 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. In this particular project, we also have townhomes. We're quite heavier on townhomes. We have 55, and again, you'll see that later in the site plan. So we actually have 55 units that are 1,600 square feet or more. So that is one of the big differences with the Pod 2 site plan that you'll see today and part of this development agreement. This development agreement is just for the 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms that don't meet those minimum 1,000, 1,200, and 1,300 square footages. The reason for this is very similar to what we had justified in Pod 3. These communities are being built with a lot more common areas. So the residents are not always living inside their units. They're living all over the community. So there's very large clubhouses in this particular community. Again, you'll see later tonight that we're proposing a clubhouse over 10,000 square feet, 2 stories with every amenity you can dream of. We also have lots of recreation around the site. Some of it goes towards our required, but some is just additional to lots of different activities that the residents can enjoy. So that is the reason why you're seeing the trend of these smaller units in these apartment rental communities, is because there's so much more provided throughout the community, and the residents are really getting out of their unit and utilizing that much more than used to be the way in the past of your typical apartment community. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but and of course you'll see the rest of the site plan and everything a little bit later this evening.
Okay, so do we have any questions, any comments or questions from the public? Doesn't appear that there is, so we'll close public comments. And any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Leland?
Nazareth.
Nazareth,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No questions.
Commissioner Parent?
No questions. I just want to make a comment that I think that 1 bedroom at 719 square feet is a little tight and small. I hope that person is not too big and doesn't have to stretch. You know, they could knock down the walls, but other than that.
Just for some clarification, it's very similar to what's in Pod 1, and my understanding is that they're renting fast, and the rents are not cheap. I know that they're up around $1,600 for a 1 or 2 bedroom.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Because
it's
you
quite
end up-
expensive.
You end up paying for the extra amenities also, if
Correct.
that's included, yeah. No other comments.
Okay, Commissioner Markey?
I have no comment.
Yeah, I have no questions or comments. So just maybe, actually, I do have one question.
Okay.
So, can you just state why are the units as small as they are? Why are you requesting the variance, actually? Because I don't think that was explicitly stated.
And if I may, as she's approaching, just to clarify, this is not actually a variance, this is a statutory requirement, so it's a little bit different.
Oh,
You can think of
okay.
it like a variance, but you're not, in a variance scenario, you'd be applying specific code criteria. In this case, what you're doing is you're evaluating the recreation amenities that the planner indicated as being provided to justify the reduction in unit sizes. So it's thought of a little bit like a variance, but procedurally a bit different.
Right, and it is provided for, the developers agreement are provided for by state statute, so it allows the developer and the municipality to work out an agreement whereby they can have variations to the code for unit sizes.
Right, and I understand that the council has been agreeable to this type
Yes.
of agreement before on a couple other occasions. So just a brief,
Yep. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is the Enclave, they were approximately 200 square feet smaller per each unit. With the exception of the 3-bedroom, they were 100 square feet smaller. So, they're asking for less than what the Enclave had asked for and gotten. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ally to answer your questions.
Thank you. So it really goes back to what I had been talking about previously. The developers are just finding that there's not a demand for super large units anymore, especially at the 1 and 2 bedroom level. People are just not wanting all that space anymore. They've seen a trend in this, and they are just approaching it as a selling aspect, that they can probably sell or rent the unit for a little bit less, as a little bit less square footage is involved. And obviously, when there's less square footage, they can develop a building a little bit easier and whatnot. So the market has accepted these smaller units. These, I don't want to say millennials, but younger people don't seem to mind the smaller spaces anymore. I'm sure you've heard of some of these micro units and things like that. These are nowhere near a micro unit, obviously, but it's following that trend and the trend of the market and that demand. And again, just knowing that they have all these other amenities that will be provided on site, and that they can go and participate in activities elsewhere within the community and have that social aspect as well, I think is part of the desire. I hope that answers your question.
yes, it does. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chairman, I have a question also for you. It sounds like something that we can work out with the staff. I mean, would you be willing to work that out with the staff to come to some compromise? Because there is a gap between what you're asking for and what is proposed.
So I guess if I could jump in, I'll say that
Yeah.
the development agreement has been drafted and it's been agreed to by myself and
Okay.
by the applicant. They've presented the recreational amenities that she's gone over
Yeah.
to justify the reduction. So
Right.
at this point, you have the proposal in front of you with the
Okay.
numbers that they're requesting.
So basically, we'll vote, yay or nay. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay. So, we already had questions or comments. Well, no questions or comments except a couple. If there are no further questions or comments, can I have a motion for this item, please?
I'd like to make a motion to accept application number 19-0120 as is.
Can I have a second to the motion?
Second to the motion?
No second. So, that's interesting.
So that motion, if there's no second, that motion fails. So you'd be looking for another motion as the chair.
Okay, so we need to have, can I have an amended motion? Perhaps there needs to be more discussion, or
There can
we
be more discussion.
amend the motion? Sure. Okay, so any concerns about the, what are the concerns about the motion? Because we do need to move forward. Either we need to amend it to have potentially a motion to deny or a motion to approve.
And any motion to deny would be a new motion, which would also require a new second.
So do you have any questions?
Yes, I have concerns here. As Kevin brought up, it doesn't meet the code requirements, the minimum unit size, and I would like to at least come up with something better than what was proposed. And average size of the building and type also doesn't meet that, so I noticed there's a little, it's off, so that was my concerns. And I want that to go on the record.
I would just like to point out, whether you make a motion to approve and it fails, and then make a motion to deny, it's going to move forward to village council, and they're aware of the other ones that they've already approved as well. So.
Right. Okay, so I'd like to request again,
Another motion.
another motion, either an amended motion or the same motion. Okay,
Being,
is this appropriate that the
He's the applicant, he
speak?
can certainly speak, yes.
Okay.
It's not quasi judicial. Name, please, for the record, sir.
Brian Tuttle, I'm the applicant. The only thing I would ask you to remember is that, one, all the unit sizes on the ones and the threes are bigger than what's already been approved. And what we're doing that they didn't do is I think we're doing 55 or 60 townhomes. So our average size of all of our units are bigger than what the average size of the two previous projects were that were already approved. And I don't remember, and I apologize, did they recommend approval or denial for the related one?
I don't remember related. Pod 3 was a recommendation of approval.
Yeah, so on Florida Crystals, which was just here about 4 months ago, on the variance, you recommended approval, and our average size is bigger than theirs. So just throwing that out there. And we're doing the townhomes, which makes our overall sizes much bigger.
Right,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
I'm gonna try and make another motion and see if this one carries through. She finished. I'd like to make a motion for application number 19-0120, which is in consistency with other similar projects that we have approved in previous sessions that meet the same general square footage requirements.
Was your motion to recommend approval?
Recommend approval, yes, in consistency with other projects that have come before us with the same square footage size.
Which, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, the data are there, so I think these are relatively consistent
Yeah,
already.
they're relatively consistent. So basically, you're recommending approval of the
Approval in
application.
consistency with other projects that we have put forth on this, approved.
So can I have a second? Okay, can I have perhaps an amended motion?
Just so we're clear, that motion fails for lack of a second, so we would need a new motion. If the desire is to deny this, the applicant is before you, they have an agenda item before you, you have to act on this item. So if there's not going to be seconds on a motion to approve, then a motion to deny would need to be made.
Right. Okay, so can we have an amended motion?
I would
One
just
way or
like
the
to,
other.
I would just also like to state that I, being one of the oldest members on the board that have sat through Part 1 and other developments that have been developed with this, in which we gave precise and in-depth review and questions and everything that you could dig through it in, and it was approved with basically a different P&Z board that had a lot of experience, years and years of experience. And all these type of applications and space and square footage applications were approved with a lot of knowledge on previous applications. I just want to make that as a comment, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to also add that I think the council's desires have been expressed in the previous signed agreement. So I think that should also be taken into account. Those prior applications, despite, staff's recommendation for denial, staff is acting based on strict code requirements. They cannot actually recommend approval of something that does not meet code. So I think as a council, as this commission has that authority to at least recommend approval despite staff's recommendation for denial. So I guess with that, I don't know if we need any further discussion, but we do need to keep moving. So one way or another, let's either, move forward with an approval or a denial. So we do need another motion.
Because I believe all of you, as Ross has just mentioned, have been through all these criteria and details and everything, and even though you recommend denial, you are in a sort of a way, okay to move forward with this as in previous other discussions we've had.
Yes, it's, staff gets overruled occasionally, and that's perfectly fine.
And just as I said before, your job here tonight is to evaluate the recreational amenities and the additional open space, and to consider that in whether or not they are allowed to have a reduced unit size. So there's certainly precedent that a reduced unit size has moved forward with this commission's approval and certainly with council approval. But you should be evaluating what they've proposed here and what you've read in your backup in terms of recreational amenities against the requested reduction in unit sizes.
And I like to just, I'm kind of talking a lot on this subject, that we were told previously, a long time ago, that a lot of these apartments are not for family, they're more for professional people that might be working in hospitals and prime position jobs in the area and just need a place close to be able to be near their job, maybe a husband and wife, or maybe a husband or a wife. So it's not something that you're looking for a huge family or something. It's basically professionals that just need a place to pop in. They probably don't even cook. They probably pop out to the restaurants and eat or hang out in the pool, So it's basically a different style of living for, like you said, the millenniums. So should I make another motion to approve?
Why don't we, I would encourage maybe a different member of the board to make a motion, since your motions have not passed. We can maybe get a different motion from either Ray or...
You want me to?
And June, just for the record, Commissioner Parent, excuse me, you are not precluded from making a motion, so if that's your desire, if you think this conversation has changed in any way, you're certainly free to make another motion.
Yes, of course.
Well,
I'm
I'd be
just- I'm
more
trying
than
to keep
happy to
things
get
moving,
somebody
so-
else to make a motion to move forward this,
Yeah,
because,
right.
yeah, it's a long time.
I would like to make a motion, and since it doesn't meet the code requirement, I would like to make a motion 19-0120, denial.
Okay, can we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
So we have no,
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
motion fails. All right. Okay, so we're at a interesting point in this.
This is moving on,
Suggestions?
as Kevin indicated, this is moving on to council. I'll reiterate the point that formal action does have to occur here tonight, so there either needs to be a successful motion to approve or a successful motion to deny. But this is moving on regardless, and as you always know, your votes and discussion that happens here is relayed to council, so they're aware of potential concerns that you have. I would certainly redirect your attention to the fact that this development has in and of itself been before you before with nearly an identical request. There are several other properties in the village that have come through fairly consistently with this. So although it doesn't meet code, I would again encourage you to consider that staff has to make their recommendation based on a strict interpretation of the code, but the statute allows for this process so long as the applicant justifies their reduction in unit sizes based on the additional recreation.
Thank you.
All right, so let's try this again. Can I have another motion, please? Anyone? How about you, Phil?
Well, mine would be a motion for denial.
I'll make a motion on application 19-0120, moving forward as is with all the amenities that move forward with this, which include the park. Hold on, I'll read the list to you. So we make sure we have it all there. We have a clubhouse that will include a leasing and management center, a fitness room, a game center, a cyber cafe, a aerobics room, a lounge room, and clubhouse room for various residents' activities. So thinking forward that most of these residents that live here will be participating on all these outside amenities. So I like to pass this, I like to put that into motion.
All right, can I have a second?
I don't understand. Well, let's move on.
Not sure how we're gonna move on here.
You have to have successful action on this agenda item.
All right, so let's try it one more time. Let's make a motion.
I made so many motions, I don't know what kind of motions to make anymore.
Ray, can you repeat your motion, please?
All I'm asking is that it doesn't meet the code requirement, and I already specified what my concerns are, and that put me in the denial mode.
Is
That's
there
it.
anything that the applicant can provide to you, any additional explanation about their recreation that would change your mind or help illustrate exactly what they're proposing?
They are proposing a compromise, Ray.
Right, yeah,
It is a compromise.
compromise with all that is in there.
Do you want
Maybe
to
we can hear from the applicant then. Some kind of compromise, that's all I'm asking.
Last time I voted no. Last time they did this.
Go ahead.
May I open up the site plan presentation to show the rec areas? Would that be helpful? Am I permitted to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do too.
I mean, ultimately, council is gonna make the decision.
Yeah, they're gonna approve it, no matter what you say anyhow. They're gonna approve it.
She's going to open up the site plan very quickly so that she can show you the recreational amenities.
Okay.
Just listen to the council and they will approve it. Don't delay it now.
What did that do? Okay, so per some of the motions that were previously made, these are some of the things that we were talking about. This is the site plan before you, pretend that you're not seeing. However, this was an analysis of all the recreational areas and amenities that we're providing for the future residents. As we discussed, we're providing over 10,000 square foot over 2 stories of a clubhouse facility on the eastern side of the site. That's on the east side of the lake. North is up, so that kind of gives you some guidance here. Around the clubhouse is going to be another 10,000 square foot pool deck around a very resort-like pool area. There's going to be a pool pavilion building. There's also going to be a putting green. The services within the clubhouse, as Commissioner Perrin had mentioned, are endless. They're going to have all sorts of different rooms for multi-use activities and events if they want to hold their own events there. That's sort of the idea, is that they wouldn't host an event in their own unit. They would go and use this fabulous facility that they have in the clubhouse. Outside of the clubhouse, as I mentioned, there's the pool area, the putting green. We have a summer kitchen being provided for the residents so that they can go have barbecues outside in this really beautifully staged kitchen, right looking out into the lake area. We also have activities such as bocce court, horseshoe court. We have a fire pit and seating area. We also have, of course, a kids playground, biking paths, hiking paths. We have a volleyball court, and we are also proposing 2 large dog run and park areas as well. So again, a lot of that living is going to be within these common areas. And so that was our compromise with the proposed smaller units, is that a lot of these events or activities that you would be doing with other people or with your guests would be hosted in the summer kitchen or the fire pit area or the 10,000 square foot clubhouse or around the pool or in the pool pavilion. And that was really where we found compromise with staff and had written into the developer's agreement. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Can I ask you would it be okay if I asked a question? There was a council meeting, and you came, and the council also had recommended, I don't remember, maybe a month or 2 ago, that you have 1 or 2 less units, and you make the units that you have a little bit bigger. So I want something to say that these units are a little bit bigger, because when Kevin read the specification, I noticed that, and Brian, you were there, you know,
Yes.
mainly, please answer that question. Thank you.
Specifically, it was on the single-family homes
Yeah.
and the lots.
Yeah.
They asked if we could make some of the lots a little bigger, so we agreed to remove 4 homes, and we
Right.
agreed to create 20 lots that were bigger.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the building designs are done, all the floor to open space ratios are done. You can't change any of the unit sizes at this meeting. I mean, it's just impossible because the developer's agreement's done, everything's done. You'd have to completely redesign all the buildings. So the compromise that you're asking to make was fought out over the last 6 months already with staff. And so that's how we got to the, I'm not allowed to say it, but that's how you got to the recommendation of approval of the site plan, which is coming later. But due to this process, this variance thing has to come first, developer's agreement. So we do have a recommendation of approval for the site plan, which was the thing that we fought so long with staff, and where we made all those compromises, the dog run. Our lake is bigger than Related and Florida Crystals Lake. I mean, like 30% bigger. Our clubhouse is 25% bigger than the other 2 clubhouses. Our average size unit is bigger than the other 2 previously approved projects. So my point is, we've already done all those negotiations. We've already met a meeting with the mines with staff, and that's how we got the recommendation of approval of the site plan. So at this point, I can't change those minimum unit sizes. I mean, I wish I could, but it's just not something I can do.
So could I hear from the staff, Kevin? Can you please
Yes.
help with my concerns?
Mr. Tuttle is correct. The site plan would have to change significantly, and there's a number of different code elements that would be affected. The pervious area calculations would change because the building footprints would have to get larger. The parking would have to be adjusted. You know, it's a jigsaw puzzle that all the puzzle pieces have to fit exactly in order for the site plan to get a recommendation for approval. And he's got to meet pervious area requirements, parking requirements, recreation requirements, drainage requirements. And if we start messing with the buildings at this point, it's not the same site plan. So then if you recommend denial on this, then basically the recommendation for all of the following applications would be denial.
It
So
would set a precedent. in other words.
it wouldn't set a precedent. It would just be that you can't possibly recommend approval if nobody agrees on the unit size.
Okay.
So-
And also,
And that's fine. I mean, you can recommend denial on the entire project, and it can go forward to council with that recommendation for the parking variance and the unit size and the site plan and all of the accompanying parts of it. But we need to get past the vote on this item to move to any of those other items.
Okay.
So somebody on one of the sides needs to change their mind. That's the only way to move this item forward, is for a nay to change to a yay, or a yay to change to a nay. But either way, somebody has to win the vote so that we can move it forward. And I don't know that I'm sure the applicant prefers that it be an approval recommendation, but he needs a recommendation so that he can move on to council, whether it be approval or denial. And since there's only 4 of you, unfortunately, if there was a 5th one, I don't think we'd be in this situation, but.
All right.
yeah, you wanted to say something? Maybe I'll hear from you too.
Sure. I just wanted to, now that I recall what you were discussing in that prior council meeting with Pod 4, which, as Brian mentioned, was a single-family pod within the master plan.
Right.
When we reduced the number of units, it did increase the lot sizes as was requested. However, one thing that's very important to recall in Pod 4 is that there is not even a quarter of the common amenity space in Pod 4. We're not providing a clubhouse. We're not providing any of those types of things in Pod 4. There's a pool, that's it, and then there's some open green areas that are just sort of passive park areas, but that's it. So that's the big difference between the two if you were to compare the 2 projects. So I just wanted to add that.
So keep in mind, Ray, if I might add, you know, the alternative is that some of those great outdoor amenities would have to potentially disappear. So do we want slightly larger units, or can we live with the unit sizes as proposed, which are larger than previously approved, with this nice project that our village needs?
And I'd like to respond also to Ross. I'd like to see larger units, right? Because our village, and I've lived here many years, I don't want to see the unit shrinking more and more and more, because already I see units that's coming into our village that's shrinking. And that's, you can, you know, now, this is my personal opinion, and it also, I look at the history of Royal Palm Beach, and we've had units that were bigger customarily, and that's why we have a village code. So that's probably why my vote is dissenting.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And
I'd like to just make one comment in reply to Ray's comment. I understand what you're coming from, Ray. You and I are from the XYZ, whatever generation the heck we come from.
Yep.
But I know, like, I have family members that are younger that look at things completely different. They don't hoard all the stuff we hoard. And they don't require as much space as we do, because these young kids are like out there. They're always, what time do you get home at night? 10 o'clock at night? Because I'm here, I'm there, I'm doing everything. Us, we're sitting at home, relaxing, watching TV. So you got to take the people and the types that are going to be moving into these new apartments that are the new generations. And the same thing is happening in New York City, in Brooklyn. They take the brownstone houses that are big brownstone houses and split the floors into 2 apartments so that everybody can, you know, they have 2 apartments on each floor. And this is what the new generation, what are we in now? The Z generation,
the Z
or whatever it is,
generation.
is into.
As the applicant said, the market is also evolving, so
Yeah.
it's,
And this is for more of the professional style people that are just going to be home to sleep, and that's about it.
And another thing to keep in mind is the larger the unit size, the more electricity and things of that nature. You know, South Florida's hot. A lot of people like to go outside on the sunny days and sit by the pool that, you know, was one of the amenities. So, you know, the larger the unit size, the higher the electric bill,
And the
the
cost.
bigger the footprint.
The rental's more than also.
And the rent would go up as well, yes.
One last time, I want to ask Brian, if you could step up there, please.
Yes,
I noticed that the demand, you know, and everything is market driven. You're in business and you look at the market, and your idea is that there's a decreased demand for the units unless you shrink them. Is that, are we close to that, or?
I wouldn't put it that way. I'd put it more that a couple different things. One, I think that the market drives what we need.
Right.
And so if we look at what's primarily renting in the first phase, it's the 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Which is a little disheartening to me because I'm doing so many bigger units.
Right.
But I'm hoping that between them and the Florida Crystals, by having a little smaller, and mine will be a little bigger. Plus, I'm putting some other things you haven't seen in my site plan. I'm putting elevators in 4 of my 3-story walk-ups. None of the other projects have any elevators. So we're trying to make ours a little step above the clubhouse, 25% bigger, more amenities, bigger lake, all these different things.
A cut above your competitors.
I'm always a cut above my competitors.
Okay.
But this project,
I'm reading you right then. All right.
That's good to know.
so maybe we're ready.
We want the better competitors here.
Okay, on progress, I'm gonna say this. So we're gonna look at progress, and I'm gonna leave it to the council to decide. So on that note, I'm gonna make a motion to approve 19-0120 as read.
Okay, can I have a second?
I second that. Oh, man.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay.
You closed me,
Motion passes
Brian.
4-0.
And before you move on,
Yep.
sir, I have to make, the statute requires that we announce the second public hearing for this item, so that public hearing will be on November 21st, 2019,
Okay.
at 6:30 PM here in the Village Council chambers. That will be the Village
I'm
Council
sorry, I'm
meeting.
very bad. I'm sorry, what date did you say again?
November 21st?
21st,
November
yeah.
21st? Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
6:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can move on to item 2. All right. So item 2 is ordinance number 995, proposing to amend the village's code of ordinances at chapter 15, adds language regarding a state law exemption to local government regulation of tree trimming, pruning, and removal, replacement, and mitigation requirements on residential properties under certain circumstances. Kevin, you have?
Yes. This is a much simpler one than the last one. It's a revision to comply with state statute, House Bill 1159. The state basically preempted local authority on landscape codes under certain circumstances, and we are altering our landscape code in order to be compliant with state law. And there's 5 main points to it. One is that a tree on residential property if it presents a danger to persons or property, then it's exempt from the mitigation requirements. If the tree is pruned, trimmed, or removed in order to eliminate the danger to persons or property. And number 3, this has already been to Village Council for first reading.
Yeah.
Number 3 got modified from the tree is not a village zone tree to that the tree is not part of a village approved planting program, which has been installed by agreement with the property owner. And number 4, the residential property owner obtains documentation from an arborist certified by the International Society of Arboriculture or a Florida licensed landscape architect confirming that the tree presents a danger to persons or property, and that the residential property owner obtains the required documentation from the arborist or landscape architect prior to the tree being pruned, trimmed, or removed. So village staff is recommending approval so that we can be in compliance with state law. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And if I may just jump in, as Kevin said, the important thing to note here, this should be essentially pro forma. This is, you guys just, and the council just approved a fairly large overhaul to the landscape code. This is just another instance where the state legislature preempted us, and we had to carve out the exception to make your code conform with the state law. So it's just that simple.
All right, are there any questions or comments from the public? Or comments from the public? Okay, none, so I will close public comments. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
I have a quick question. Kevin, so basically the bottom line is the Florida statutes trump our local ordinance.
That is correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what preemption.
Exactly.
That's the definition.
I just want to clarify that in my head. Okay. That's it.
Okay, any, Commissioner Parent?
No comments or questions?
No comments.
Okay, I have none, so can I have a second? Can I have,
for the
can I have a
motion, yeah.
motion for this item number 2, application number 995?
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 995.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. No.
And I'm sorry, I misheard. Who made the second?
Phil.
Bill, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So motion passes 4-0.
Yep.
Okay, so item number 3. Ordinance number 997, proposing to amend chapter 26, zoning of the village's code of ordinances at section 26-40 in order to increase the percentage of previously approved landscape material species that may be substituted for different species throughout the minor site plan modification process.
Okay, yes, as stated in the agenda item, title. This is merely an ordinance that amends Chapter 26 at 2640A4D to, instead of allow 10% of the species to be changed out through staff approval, up to 20%. So because we were running into a lot of instances where they may only have 10 or 15 species of plants on the property, so it really only limited them to one tree. If they have more species, they could do more than one tree, or shrub, but that's seems to be a hardship for a lot of people. And instead of 15 to 30 days at a staff level review, it's a 3 to 4 month, maybe 5 month process.
That's good.
So village staff is recommending approval of the amendment as proposed.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Okay, no comments from the public, so we'll close public comments. Any questions or comments from the commissioners on this application?
No.
Okay, no comments from the commissioners. Can I have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 997 as read.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, so now we can adjourn this meeting and open the planning and zoning meeting. It is now 7:46.
52.
52.
I have 7:52.
Right. It's on your screen. also.
We just want to have the record state that all the commissioners that were here for the local planning agency are in attendance for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Will we do the pledge again?
No.
No.
All right, and then roll call is done. So we will. Oh, I see. Okay, so I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes of the August 27th, 2019 Planning and Zoning meeting.
And you can do this, I'm sorry for the interruption, Chairman, you can do this as one motion. If you read both minutes, you can do it as one
Oh,
motion.
okay, I see. All right, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 27th, 2019 and the September 24th, 2019 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the August 27th and the September 24th, 2019 minutes as is.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, so first item is application number 19-0068. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 26-57 for a reduced side setback of 0.9 feet where the village code requires 10 feet for an existing playset for a property located at Confidential Record.
And if I could, before you go on, Kevin, we are at the quasi-judicial portion of our hearing, so if you are going to speak on this agenda item or any agenda item on tonight's agenda, if you could raise your right hands, thank you. And ma'am in the back, do you all swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Kevin, before you begin, I'll turn back to the board and ask if there are any ex parte communications with regard to application number 19-0068 that need to be disclosed.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 1, 1968 variance. This is a confidential record, and just to give the board a little bit of background, since this is only the second one that you have heard, which is a confidential record, there's provisions in the state statutes that people who might be subject to retaliation or threats of violence, such as code enforcement officers, police officers, fire inspectors, and things of that nature. Anybody that has a potential that somebody might want to cause them harm related to their official duties as a government official or anything like that. can request that their records be confidential. That's why the address is not listed, because this is one such employee, and they have filed the proper paperwork in order to be a confidential record. They are village residents, otherwise they wouldn't be before this board. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit, just so that everybody is on board and understands why it's a confidential record and we're not discussing the applicant's name or their address. Having said that, the criteria for granting a variance is on the screen. There should be special conditions and circumstances which exist, which are peculiar to the land structure or building involved. There should be it should not result from the actions of the applicant. It should not confer on the applicant any special privilege. A literal interpretation of the provisions of this division should deprive the applicants of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. The variance granted should be the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. It should be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning code, and it should not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. So the request is for a swing set. This is a portion of the survey. The swing set is on the left side of the house. The setback to the property line as installed is 0.9 feet at the closest point and 1.1 foot at the furthest point from the side property line. It is a play structure. Village code requires a 10-foot setback from the property line for play structures in the RS2 zoning district. As you can see, there's numerous other structures on the property that prevent them from being able to meet the setback no matter where they propose to locate it. And the applicant is requesting a variance to allow for a 0.9 foot side yard setback in lieu of the required 10-foot side yard setback for the existing play structure. The applicant is seeking a 9.1 foot variance to the side setback requirements as established in Code Section 2657. The applicant asserts that the reduced side setback is necessary in order to allow the existing play structure to remain. In addition, the applicant states that due to the arrangement of other structures on the property, there is nowhere on the property that would allow them to install the play structure that would not require a variance. The applicant further asserts that this is the minimum variance that will allow for reasonable use of the property and prevent village code from denying the applicant an amenity commonly enjoyed by other property owners. Village staff is not in support of the variance because staff believes that no special condition or circumstances exist which are not applicable to other lands, that the condition is the result from actions of the applicant, and that it will confer on the applicant special privileges that are denied to other lands. And literal interpretation of the code does not deprive the applicant the rights enjoyed by other lands in the same zoning district, and it's not the minimum variance necessary. So staff is looking for a recommendation of denial to be submitted to the village council regarding application 1968. Having said that, there have been similar variances in the past. Some, actually a fair number of them have been approved in the past by the village council, but you recommend to them either approval or denial, and they are the final authority on all variances. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Someone from the applicant's team is here if you wish to speak to them, or if they wish to give a presentation.
Okay, so are you the applicant? Yes. Would you like to speak?
Can you, if you could approach the podium, I think she's here to answer questions if you have questions of her. I don't know that she has a formal presentation. You're certainly free to make one, but she can certainly answer any questions you have.
All right, so do we have any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Nazareth?
I have a question, and I don't know if she's up to answer, but my main question is the no special privileges, and I'm getting the impression that there is special privileges here. So I'd like the applicant to please explain to me why it isn't.
Can you go to that podium, ma'am?
Can you say it one more time? Sorry.
The special privileges, I just want to know why you think it is, in your opinion, in your words.
Why it isn't a special privilege?
Yeah.
It's a swing set. I didn't even know we had to have, it states in there that sheds or other structures need a permit.
Right.
We were unaware that a swing set, and I grew up in Wellington. I grew up in the Village of Wellington. I decided to raise my family here.
Right.
And they don't have anything. My friend's on the planning and zoning over there, and she's never even heard of a permit for a swing set.
Mhm.
So, and stated, the neighborhood kids play on it too. It's not just,
Thank you.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Well, I have a question.
Oh,
for you.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Are any of your neighbors complaining about this, or you
Not
have
at
a
all.
problem with them?
not at all. They play on it.
Okay.
So.
And the village sends out the 300-foot notices as required by village code to the neighbors. So if any of them wanted to come out and speak tonight, either for or against, they were all notified and had ample opportunity to come out, either in support or in opposition.
I think that the neighbor that it lines up to the fence with, I think she sent in a letter.
Okay.
She wasn't able to make it.
That would have been in your packets if there was a letter.
Any other questions or comments?
Is it for that little one running around?
Mhm.
Oh, good. I hope she enjoys
And
it.
a 5-year-old that's at baseball.
Good, thank you.
So I have a question for you, Kevin.
Sure.
Can you explain to us what the intent or the basic reason for the setbacks is? Setback requirements.
There's several reasons. One of them is to ensure light and air and things like that. Another reason is a lot of times if there's large numbers of, if it's a really large play set or shed or workshop or whatever, there could be a lot of noise generated and just disturb the quiet enjoyment of other property owners. That's the main purpose of setbacks. If none of her neighbors object, then
Does it have anything to do with access for emergency personnel? If there's a fire or something like that potentially could be an obstruction for access. I mean,
no, the closest thing as far as safety, as far as access for fire is, when something that's flammable is too close to a building, there's a potential for the fire to spread.
and then, I guess my opinion of this is that, I'd just like to say that obviously there's a reason why we have codes in place, and we try not to just approve all variances. Obviously, I think we all relate to the situation. Is there any way that potentially the swing set could be potentially reoriented?
Relocated, yeah.
to Allow more room?
There really isn't, if you look at the layout of the property,
no
anywhere,
room. Yeah.
Like
anywhere
if
where
it's
that's
turned
put.
alongside, maybe
No,
reduce the variance.
there's something called safe zones that the swing sets require. In case, when you're swinging, you fall off, or if you're climbing the rock wall and fall off, they need to have those safe zones where it's not a danger to the people that are utilizing them. Play structures, while they do take up a permanent space on the land, children aren't going to be children forever. So, a play set is less of an issue sometimes than maybe a shed, which, maybe there for 15 or 20 years,
Right.
especially if somebody has a noisy hobby that, it's right up against the property line, things of that nature. But that's for you guys to consider, whether or not you think it's an imposition to the neighbors.
Okay. Okay, so I think
I
we're
have
ready.
another
You
question.
have
Yeah,
another-
Kevin, you addressed my danger, through your question, but my specific question is this going to open up the doors for other applicants similar with children? Because, was there others denied? Because I noticed that in one of our meetings, there was dissension, similar to this one where it wasn't disclosed, the person.
Right.
And you had neighbors come out and say, look, we were denied, and how come this guy is, getting special privileges?
Right.
So that's my question.
The only thing I can offer on that is that it is not a precedence. You take each application on its own merits. So, somebody could come in and want a 5-foot setback, and, you could say that there's ample room on the property, and so that there's a good reason to deny it.
Okay.
So, it could only be a 1-foot setback variance that they're asking for, and
Still our
and you could
code.
still deny it, regardless of whether you approve this one or not.
Okay, thank you.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, as he said, you are to evaluate the facts before you in this application against the variance criteria that Kevin went over with you at the beginning of this application. So, as he said, it doesn't set a precedent. You're to evaluate every variance application before you based on its own merits and
Gotcha.
evaluate them against the criteria.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve application.
Hold on, if we could just make sure there's no public comment. I'm sorry, before.
Any public comments or questions? No. So public comments closed.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion now?
I make a motion to approve application number 19-0068 as is.
Can I have a second?
I'll have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion passes 3-1. Commissioner Nazareth opposed. Okay, item 2, application number 17-0005. So application number 17-0005, 13-18, UUMPSE, Southern Boulevard Properties. The applicant, Urban Design Kilday Studios, is requesting a master plan approval and a special exception approval for a planned commercial development, PCD, for a 156.258 acre property located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of Statewood 7.
And before Kevin gets started, if I could ask the commission if there are any ex parte communications with regard to 17-0005 that need to be disclosed?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, as the chairman stated, the applicant is seeking master plan and special exception use approval for a planned commercial development with residential on a 156.258 acre parcel. The site is highlighted in red on the screen. The master plan encompasses various zoning districts and uses, from commercial to multifamily to single family, and even open space or private or public ownership. This is the applicant's vision for how the area is to be developed, and a number of the pods have already been approved. Pod 6 up at the top is the commercial pod. Here, pod 3 has already been approved. Pod 4 in the lower left-hand corner has already been approved. Pod 8 just, I think, recently was rezoned to public ownership. And Pod 2 is the subject of tonight's meeting. Pod 7 is proposed to be a public charter school. So having said that, pursuant to Section 2223G, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Village Council shall review. Oh, that's a preliminary plat. Sorry about that. That doesn't go with that one. So the master plan, as I said, contains 6 pods, 2 of which are proposed to be developed as multifamily residential, 2 of which are proposed to be developed as commercial uses, one of which is proposed to be developed as single-family residential, and one of which will be deeded to the village for use as a public park. And the public park is being dedicated to the village to satisfy the recreation requirements for the residential uses or components of the master plan. The special exception is for a planned commercial development. As stated before, there's a number of commercial tracts, pod 6 and 7, and the village code has a section that allows planned commercial developments to include residential components, as this one does. Village staff is recommending approval of this as submitted, subject to approval of the variance, well, actually not subject to, just approval as submitted.
Yes, submitted, okay.
Okay, so is the applicant present for presentation? Or
Good evening again. Allie Palmer with Urban Design Kildare Studios. Here tonight representing TLI or TLH, as you may have heard before, for the Tuttle Royale Master Plan and Special Exception Request. So a lot of this you've seen just now in Kevin's presentation, but also from me in previous months. But for those who need a recap, I will go through some of these slides. As Kevin mentioned, we went through much of this information during the future land use and through the rezoning applications, because obviously it would have been difficult to understand those requests without seeing the big picture. So this is sort of just the final recap of it all, putting it all together in one big summary. So again, tonight we're requesting master plan approval for Tuttle Royale, and we're also requesting a special exception to allow it to be a planned commercial development, PCD.
The PUD, right.
As Kevin mentioned, the property is located south of Southern Boulevard at the corner of State Road 7, the southwest corner. And this is just an aerial of the boundary of the site. Just one thing to point out that the pod, what we know pod 1 as, or phase 1 as related, is actually not included in this particular master plan that was approved before we came forward with the master plan. A little blurry on here. Can you all see that master plan in front of you? Okay, all right. So up before you now is what Kevin had pointed out as the master plan, just with a little bit more information. So everything in red has been before you, and with future land use to commercial as well as rezoned to general commercial. That is pod 6A and pod 6B, which is adjacent to Southern Boulevard. Pod 6A is planned for neighborhood commercial. That site plan has been submitted and is pending approval certification by staff, so that will come before you in the near future. Then we also have 6B, what we call the entertainment center, that will have some more of the larger entertainment commercial uses, which I'll go through here in just a minute. That site plan has not been submitted just yet, but does have land use and zoning, as you know. Then there is pod 7, which is just south of the main east-west connector, which we call Erica Boulevard in pink. Pod 7 is also a commercial land use, but it is actually proposed to be a charter school. So you will be seeing that as well, because I believe they just may have been certified. They are proposing 1,500 students in K through 12th grade. We also have proposed 2 multifamily pods, as you know, pod 2 and pod 3. Pod 3 is multifamily apartments, 318 units. That has been approved. The site plan came before you back in, I believe, March, and has gone to council. And then pod 2 is obviously before you tonight, so you'll hear more about that in a future presentation. Then we have pod 4 to the south of pod 2 in the yellow. That is single-family homes, and that came before you as far as site plan approval earlier this year as well in the spring. And then, as Kevin mentioned, pod 8 to the south is the open space recreation dedication for all the residential development. This is just a conceptual plan that you've seen before that shows everything all in one picture. However, many of these site plans have been modified since this graphic, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to it, but it does give you an idea of how everything will lay out once it's all developed, after it's all developed. So the development program, as I mentioned, we have the residential pods, pods 2, pods 3, and pod 4, with pods 2 and 3 being the multifamily, and pod 4 the single family. We have pod 8, which is the public park, Erica Boulevard, which is the east-west connector, and as well as Lufts Road, which actually goes alongside the park and the charter school. We also have pod 7, which I had mentioned, the charter school. And then pod 6, we had discussed earlier, has a maximum of 341,000 square feet on about 31 acres, and that includes approved uses as far as traffic approvals, not site plan approval, but Palm Beach County TPS approval for grocery, pharmacy, convenience store with gas station use, restaurants, general commercial, hotel, movie theater, health club, daycare facility, car wash, and a multimodal center. This slide might look familiar. That was presented as part of our future land use proposals for many of the pods. Just shows the interconnectivity of the site through all the different roadways. Tuttle Boulevard, which, as you're aware, is already installed, comes down south from Southern Boulevard and connects out to State Road 7 via Erica Boulevard. And there's also several easement agreements that take you through the different commercial uses along State Road 7 as well. This goes through all the different improvements and construction projects that are going to be part of this project. As you know, there's 2 signals, there's the bridge, and there's also different prop share dedications that are being made by the applicant. Which again, this was all part of the future land use and zoning applications, but we just like to remind everybody what has happened so far. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the public? Okay, so no.
I think, you got 2 comment cards, is one of them,
Oh,
are you all
yes.
speaking on this item or no? Next one, only, I just want to make sure, thank you.
This is for 3 items.
Perfect.
Okay, so any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Nazara?
No.
Commissioner Perrin?
No comments or questions?
Commissioner Markey?
No.
Okay, I have none, so I would like to request a motion for this item.
I'll make a motion to approve 17-0005 as read.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. All right, item 3 is application number 17-0036, Southern Boulevard Properties. The applicant, Urban Design Kilday Studios, is requesting preliminary plat approval for one parcel of land totaling 156.258 acres located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of State Road 7.
Okay, yes, 1736 is a preliminary plat approval for the master planned area. Pursuant to section 22-23G, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Village Council shall review the preliminary plat and supporting data and may request the alterations be made in the final plat. There are several things that the code requires in order for a preliminary plat to be accepted and approved. One is a vicinity sketch or key map at a scale of not more than 1,000 feet to the inch shall be shown on or accompanying the preliminary plat. The map shall show the position of the subdivision with relation to the surrounding streets and properties. The description of the boundary survey of the property shall have a maximum area of closure of 1 to 5,000. The name of the subdivision, name of owner and agent, name of engineer, name of surveyor, and names of streets. Scale and date are required. A north point, with north being at the top of the map or right side of the map or within the 90-degree quadrant. and a boundary line of the proposed subdivision, including the limit lines of any phases thereof, the lot lines, parcels of land to be dedicated to public use, setback lines, easements, street right-of-way lines, and other property lines drawn to scale with the tentative dimensions. It also requires a list of summary information to be provided: total acres, number of lots, lineal feet of streets, approximate lot dimensions, approximate lot size, other important features such as railroads and corporate limits of the village, and a preliminary drainage plan showing the location of bridges, drainage structures, and typical sections of canals. Submit this plan with the preliminary plat as a reference drawing. So having said that, the limits of the plat are outlined in red. It's the same limits as the master plan that was just approved. And again, the plat with the various tracts. Tract 4 is the single family. Tract 8, I'm sorry, not tract 8, no. Tract 2 is the pod that we're site planning. Tract 7 is the school parcel. Tract 6, A and B are the commercial parcels, and Tract 3 is pod 3. So, and then down at the bottom, Tract 12 is the public park, along with a portion of the FP&L easement. This parcel here, which is owned by Bradford Bell, is included, as well as some of the parcels fronting the C51 canal behind the Lowe's shopping center. Village staff has reviewed the preliminary plat for conformity with section 2222, and the platted property meets all dimensional requirements of the zoning districts that are within the platted area. The preliminary plat is consistent with the currently approved site plans for pods 3 and 4 and the site plan for Erica Boulevard, which have all already been approved. Village staff is recommending approval of the application as submitted. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation or say anything?
I do not have a visual presentation for the plat, as it is quite technical, and I am very happy with what Kevin presented to you, but we are definitely here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Yes, please come to the podium.
Good evening, Richard Carlson for the record.
Kevin, can you hold up just 1 second? Would you please start the clock for the 3 minutes? Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes.
And just because you're the first member to be making comments tonight, please direct your comments to the commission itself. I won't swear you in. I don't need to swear you in.
Okay.
Direct your comments to the commission and know that they are comments. So
Understood. Yes.
You have your 3 minutes as soon as Lauren starts the
Understood.
timer. Thank you.
Richard Carlson for the record. I represent one of the out parcels along the Acme Road on the north side up against the C51 canal. I think I appeared before you all a number of months ago talking about access. Kevin went through section 22-22 of this code, subdivision regulations. What he didn't talk about was section 22-45 and all of the coordination aspects that have to be done for out parcels in the vicinity. One of the more critical items of those coordination requirements is providing access to the parcels that are not included. Now, there are a number of lots up there. If you start on the east end, you'll see a TLH 26-Giles. That is Mr. Tuttle's flag lot, as we call it. The next one to the west is Carruthers, my client. The next one to the west is Britannia, which Mr. Tuttle is in a dispute with a contract purchaser that's also buying my client's property relative to the acquisition of that property. That's in litigation. The next one over is owned by Mr. Tuttle. It's Hamrick. There's another holdout out parcel, and then another TLH Giles, I believe, further down to the west. All of those out parcels should be protected in this process. What Mr. Tuttle, and we had a pleasant conversation outside, and he said he has committed to providing access to all of those out parcels. I've seen the proposed easement to accomplish access along with the dedications on the plat. And I still submit there are significant deficiencies in the language of those that needs to be addressed before the final plat can be approved and recorded. And that is a requirement to meet the subdivision regulations. It's not, my client and the other out parcels are beneficiaries of the subdivision regulations relative to access, but it is a code requirement that they be met. One of those is a requirement that the road be a public road. That's section 22-45U. Acme Road is proposed to be a private road. Now, I understand that the village doesn't want to maintain a lot of roads that aren't that significant in their view. And on the Lowe's plat to the east, Acme Boulevard that was created on that Lowe's plat going out to State Road 7 is also a private road maintained by the Lowe's plat property owner. I expect the village would like to continue that further to the west. I don't have a conceptual problem with that as long as the terms are properly set forth, again, protecting access, public access to my client's property for development. There's some technical title issues involved in the plat. There are some issues with subdividing lots that are not included in the plat. For example, the flag lot, the furthest lot to the east, has a flag pole that runs down the east side of that property that is being platted with this plat, but the remainder of the lot is being left behind. Now, I understand the thinking is, well, it's not part of a development scheme at this point, we'll take care of it later. But again, the code requires that all subdivided property be included in the plat. I think Mr. Tuttle committed outside to us, and I'll let him speak for himself, to work with us in the terms of the easement, to work with village staff and the attorney in the terms of the easement, and hopefully we can do that between now and council and ultimately the final plat recordation. With that, I'd like to submit for the record the letters that I sent to Mr. Liggins today and one of March 16th of 2018 logging these objections. And I don't know if you got them. I'm sorry. I sent one of them to Jennifer.
I did get them,
Good.
and in response to that, I will say two things. I will say first, I will certainly provide what you submitted, though I didn't even have a chance, given the time that it was submitted, to review it in detail, given that I got it hours before this meeting. But I will certainly ensure that that is provided to Village Council at your request. The only other thing I'll say to the Planning and Zoning Commission is that this has been thoroughly vetted. The preliminary plat has been thoroughly vetted by staff, by village staff, by Kevin, by the village engineer, by myself, by Jennifer. Existing access has been preserved, as he said, and there's no obligation on the part of the village to enhance access. So I'll say that existing access as it is today has been preserved in this preliminary plat. I'll also note for you that this is preliminary plat, so there is a subsequent final plat process that will come back through the village at a later date. But those are the comments I'll make with regard to council's comment.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond?
His 3 minutes is up, so unless the board has any questions for him, he's done.
I'm happy to answer questions that may have come up that you might want to hear.
And the only other thing I'll say, nope, I have it in my email. The only other thing I'll say is just for your purposes, you do have a pending application before the village, so we got these very late in today. If you certainly have the option to request an outside TSR meeting regarding your application to discuss access issues that you may have, that is an option available to you as well.
And that's Mr. Perry's client. Thank you.
For the record, Marty Perry, and I represent the applicant before the village of the comp plan amendment. And I'm going to save you a lot of time and trouble. I'll simply adopt Mr. Carlson's comments. Our concern, frankly, is that we are assured of getting the 60-foot right-of-way access that we need to develop our parcel, which is a parcel we have under contract to both Mr. Tuttle's company as well as to Mr. Carlson's client's company. With that, I really don't have anything further to add. Mr. Tuttle has graciously offered to meet with us between now and the village council meeting to discuss any of our concerns and assure us that he's providing the access for us. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public, or would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments made? Okay. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Nazareth?
I think all my questions were addressed by our attorney because these are legal issues, and the scope of our commission is to decide what the applicant is, right, without
What you have, if I may, Kevin, and
Yeah,
jump
please.
in, but you have an application before you. You have the planning and zoning staff's recommendation. You have my comments that this has been thoroughly vetted by all village staff.
Right.
It's before you with a recommendation by the planning and zoning department because we feel that it meets the village's subdivision regulations. So as presented to you, we believe that it is compliant with the village code.
And also the applicant has agreed to meet, so that's a separate issue. They
It's a
can.
separate issue,
Yeah,
not for your
exactly.
consideration tonight.
Thank you.
Commissioner Perrin?
Let me swear you in because you were outside when we swore everyone in. Raise your right hand for me, your other. Thank you. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Talk to us, Brian.
Do you think I'll be okay with 2 lawyers and me?
Stop.
I think you all can hold your own, all three of you.
Brian.
I have faith in that.
No comment, Brian.
You may want to bring your own.
But he is supposed to be an outstanding developer, so we will hold him to that word.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Commissioner Perrin, any comments or questions?
No comments or questions.
Commissioner Markey?
I have nothing.
Okay. All right, I have none either, so can I have a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion 17-0036 be approved as read.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Item number 4, application number 19-020, Southern Boulevard Properties, Pod 2. The applicant, Urban Design Kildare Studios, is requesting a parking variance from section 23-49B1B to allow 163 tandem parking spaces where village code does not allow tandem parking, from section 23-51(1)D to allow 9 parking spaces to be used exclusively by the U.S. Postal Service during certain times where village code requires that such spaces be available for residents and guests at all times, and from section 23-51(1)D to reduce the number of required parking spaces from 946 to 812 for a variance of 134 parking spaces for a proposed 401-unit multifamily development for a 29.356 acres of land located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of the State Road 7.
Okay, I trust that you were paying attention when I read the variance criteria for item number 1, so we'll skip over those. It is the same piece of property we've been speaking about previously. This item needs to be heard prior to the site plan because our code requires that any site plan that requires a variance has to be granted the variance prior to site plan approval. You have seen this in Pod 3 and in Pod 1, and many, many years ago, probably not anybody on this board, when the Enclave came through, they did that. This seems to be a new trend in apartment complexes that they have parking garages built in or tucked under the buildings. I did want to make a clarification from some of the earlier applications. There was stated that there were townhouse units. They're townhouse style apartments. They're all apartment units. There are no townhouses as part of this development. Townhouses are fee simple, and these just look like townhouses and function like townhouses, but they are rental units. So having said that, the applicant is requesting to be able to use tandem parking spaces for a multifamily project where village code only allows tandem parking to be counted for single-family developments. Having said that, the site plan with the variance is on the screen before you with the 401 units and 26 buildings. The townhouse style units are over on the western portion of the property. There is a parking requirement generated by the 401 units. of 946 spaces. The applicant would like to reduce that number to 812 and allow the use of 134 of those 163 tandem spaces which they're providing to count towards their required parking spaces. And also there were 9 parking spaces that are limited at certain times of day for the postal service to use in order to deliver the mail. Those are the 3 variances that are before you. As I said, you've seen variances like this with Pod 3, Pod 1, and further back in history, the Enclave. Village staff, or actually the applicant contends that although the code does not allow the use of tandem spaces, there is no way to prevent the use of them by future residences when garage apartments are developed. Requiring additional parking spaces with no consideration given to the tandem parking spaces would result in excess parking of the proposed project. The applicant feels the code was developed at a time when garages were not widely constructed with apartments, and the proposed variance will reduce environmental impacts and provide more flexible design options and open space. The village has required that the applicant provide a alternate site plan that if the village, once it reaches a certain level of occupancy, we determine that there is a parking deficiency, that they can provide those spaces. They did provide an alternate site plan, which is on the screen now, and the location of the, find my mouse. Oh, there it is. The location of those excess spaces that they would provide are on the southwest corner of the property. They would have to remove a proposed amenity, which would be a dog park, in order to install those spaces. But that would be at the village's discretion if we find that the tandem parking isn't working. We haven't had any, we did not trigger that clause at the Enclave, which has been probably at full occupancy for probably 4 or 5 years now. So the first one that set this precedent hasn't had any problems. That's not to say that this one won't, but we have one example where the tandem parking has worked already. So that is the parking variance. Village staff is recommending denial because we believe there's no special conditions or circumstances which exist which are not applicable to other lands. The condition is the result of actions of the applicant. It would confer on the applicant special privileges that are denied to other lands. Literal interpretation of the code does not deprive the applicant of rights enjoyed by other lands in the same zoning district, and it's not the minimum variance necessary to allow reasonable use of the property. So we're looking for a recommendation of denial to be forwarded to the village council. Obviously, as I stated, we had a number of these that have already been approved by village council. So staff sometimes, as I said, gets overruled, and we're okay with that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And while the applicant is coming up, if I can turn back to the commission and ask if there are any ex parte communications with regard to 19-020.
No.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to say anything?
Good evening again. Allie Palmer, Urban Design Kildare Studios, here tonight representing the applicant, TLH, on Pod 2. Get that up again. So first up, as you know, is the parking variance, and I apologize for any repeats in this information. I'll try to skim over those portions quickly. Pod 2 is outlined on the screen before you, which I believe Kevin already went over. Skip through that. So right now we are going through the parking variance again. I'll try not to get into the site plan too much, but obviously they are interrelated. So you'll see here in a moment in some of the graphics, you'll see the site plan. We are proposing 401 units, and based on 401 units in the particular bedroom counts that we have in each of those units, we are required to have 946 parking spaces. We are proposing 975 parking spaces. However, Out of those 975, 163 of them are what we call tandem parking, as Kevin had mentioned. 812 are your typical parking spaces either found in a surface parking lot or within a parking garage. This 163 tandem spaces would be found behind the garage space, as would be found in a typical single-family home or a fee simple townhome unit, as Kevin had mentioned previously. These tandems in your code cannot be counted towards the required, hence why we are here before you requesting the variance, as several other apartment communities have also done. Because this is specific to rental communities, because in fee simple you can count these spaces. So before you is the site plan. I'm sorry, let me just pop up back here. As I had mentioned, in the site plan, there are two different situations in which we are requesting a variance to use the tandem spaces. There are the townhome buildings that have garages, which is typical townhome style buildings. But we are also proposing a great amenity for the residents in the apartment buildings. There will also be garages, what we call tuck under garages, as you saw previously in the Pod 3 site plan that came earlier this year. So before you on the screen is an elevation of the apartment building that have these single garages, what we call tuck under garages, on the first level of the 3-story building. And these garages will be available for rent for any of the residents in the building. Outside of these garages, which you'll see in a moment, are where the tandem spaces are, directly behind the garage. And again, same concept on the townhomes. The townhomes will each townhome unit will have a 2-car garage and have typical driveway outside of that garage, which will be considered tandem parking, not driveway parking, because of the fact that it's an apartment rental unit, not a fee simple townhome. So again, this is just another example in plan view. To the left of the screen are the townhome units. You can see that the tandem spaces are right there, located right outside of the garage space. And again, on the right, same idea. The tandem spaces are located right outside of the garage spaces below on the first floor of the apartment buildings. And this is just one example in the site plan, but any building type that is the same will have the same situation outside with the tandem spaces. Also, as Kevin mentioned, we are proposing an alternative parking plan if for some reason after occupancy the parking is not working or does not appear to be working, based on a parking study that will be conducted. If that is the case, there are several areas of the site that we would turn into parking lots. Most of these areas are going to be proposed as open space recreation areas. They are not being counted towards our recreation requirement. These are in addition to the minimum recreation requirement. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that if for some reason we did have to convert these areas, it would not take away the required recreation for the site. However, there is the ability to add the extra parking if needed in the future. And those spaces are, just so you're aware, it's the dog run, the dog park, and the volleyball court. That concludes my slides. However, just a couple things I did want to point out that's a little bit different with this particular project in relation to the variance that you're seeing before you tonight in comparison to the previous variances that we've requested for this site, as well as some of the other projects in the city and the village, excuse me. As Brian had mentioned, we are very heavy on 2 and 3 bedrooms in this particular project. 70% of this project is 2 and 3 bedrooms. So much lighter on the 1 bedrooms and really focusing on more of the multi-bedrooms in this property. But unfortunately, as a result of that, you're also required to have more parking than some of the other apartment complexes that have come through that are heavier on the 1-bedroom units. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, as Brian had mentioned previously, we are proposing 55 townhomes. In Pod 3, there was only 8 townhomes. And in Pod 1, there's no townhomes. As you know, townhome buildings just generally take up more land area. So that's a bit different here in this puzzle as well. When you look at the site plan, the whole northern half of the site plan is covered in 2-story townhome buildings, in contrast to your typical rental apartment complex, which is 3-story buildings throughout the entire project. And those townhome buildings, because they are apartments and they have 3 bedrooms, we are required to park them at a higher rate. So they are actually required to have 2.5 spaces for the residents and half a space for a guest. So total, each one of those townhomes, 55 townhomes, is required 3 spaces. We have that. We have 2 garage spaces, and we have the 2 driveway spaces behind the garage for most of them, for 40 of the 55. However, we can't count them. So that's sort of the complexity and the technical side of this issue. There are, just to be clear, there are 15 of those townhomes that don't have driveway spaces. However, we have provided 15 at-grade parking spaces to make up for those particular townhomes that don't have the driveways behind them. As far as the apartments go, as I mentioned, again, a little bit different. We are providing several of the private tuck-in garages on the first level of these buildings, which is not always seen. We did propose that in Pod 3, but typically that is not seen in your typical apartment complex. And that also takes up space as well as the tandem that goes behind it. So we are requesting for some leniency with that. And just to note, there are 130 guest spaces required for the apartments. We are proposing 83 as tandem spaces. So in other words, every person who has a garage, rents a garage space, will have 83 spaces for their guests to park behind them when they have guests. And I think that completes my presentation. Oh, the only other thing I did want to mention, and was brought up with Pod 3 as well, is that this is a mixed-use community, right? So it's a little bit different. It's master planned. There's several different uses within this master plan. And so the goal is that eventually not everybody may have 2 cars or 3 cars that, that require all these parking ratios that your code has in it today. I don't think the code really envisioned the fact that you could walk to the entertainment center to see a movie, or that you could walk to the gas station to get a soda, or that you could even walk your kid next door to the charter school, or bike, or whatever it may be. But the goal is that this is a multimodal type community, and so it won't be quite as parking centric as other rental communities in the village might be. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments from the public? No public here, so any questions or comments from the commissioners? Let's start with you this
I have
time.
nothing.
Commissioner Monteith, Commissioner Perrin,
No comments or questions?
Commissioner Nazareth.
We've been through this before.
I actually have a question.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sorry, but yeah, so I'm curious actually. So the units, I think I heard you say that the parking garages are not assigned to the apartments above them, or they are, or I'm not sure I understand that.
So in the townhome buildings, they are, because they sorry, I'm trying to get to the slide here. So in the townhome buildings, they're part of the unit. So you access the garage from inside the unit. Those are part of the unit, and they are assigned to whichever unit they're underneath. However, with the apartment units, they are not necessarily, they are not accessed through a particular unit. They are accessed through, I believe, a corridor, and I can't exactly remember from the floor plan. Is it a breezeway? Yeah. So anybody in the building can actually rent one of those garages. It doesn't have to be the unit directly above it, which provides some flexibility.
Right, okay. So if someone is parked in that particular unit, has rented that space, how do they, if that has a tandem parking spot associated with it, I mean, that's not really a parking spot, right? That's actually a driveway to the covered garage area, right?
Well, they will be actually paved as parking spaces. So it's not just going to be concrete outside of a building. It's actually going to have a driveway, and it's going to have, and let me see if I can bring this up.
Because you can't, I mean, if I, for example, I'm a resident and I say, okay, I want to rent that space, how do I control getting blocked in by someone that parks behind me?
So
allow parking there, I don't believe, right?
Right. So that's why I was discussing the guest parking. So because every unit, one of the reasons why we need so many parking spaces is because I think we need, just for the apartments, we need 130 guest parking spaces, just for the apartments. That doesn't include the townhomes. So what I was discussing before is the reason why the parking ratio is so high is because we have this 20% guest, one of the reasons is because we have this 20% guest parking ratio, which, by the way, is significantly higher, generally speaking, when you look at other municipalities in the county. However, that being said, it is the code here, so that's what we have to pay attention to. When you're looking at the number of guest parking spaces required versus the number of tandem spaces, there's more guest parking required than there are tandem spaces. So what I was saying is that, no, the person that would park behind the garage would have to be the guest of that person who is renting that garage. But there is still more guest parking provided in the surface areas. There are less tandem spaces than the guest parking, is what I was trying to articulate before. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I think another way to answer your question is, when I rent an apartment, I'm given a garage, and I'm told that I've got the garage and the space in front of it. When I rent an apartment without a garage, I'm told I can't park there. I have to park in a resident spot, and then all the guest spots are labeled guest. So that's how you know not to park there.
Yeah, okay, I got it. And just, by the way, I'm all for less parking spaces in general. I think in general, code is a bit conservative, and we're, paving over all of our green space, and we need to do less of that, so I'm all for it. I guess I have no other comments or questions, so can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve application 19-020 as is.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
So motion passes 3-1. Commissioner Nazareth opposed. Item 5, application number 19-019, Southern Boulevard Properties, Pod 2. The applicant, Urban Design Kilday Studios, is requesting site plan approval and architectural approval for 401 residential apartment units on a 29.356 acre parcel of land located on the south side of Southern Boulevard, approximately 0.27 miles west of State Road 7. The applicant is also requesting a landscape waiver from section 26-86-4E to allow the required 15-foot landscape buffer adjacent to interior lot lines to be reduced to 5 feet adjacent to the north property line.
Okay, yes, the same site. This is the actual site plan, architectural and landscape waiver review. In the interest of brevity, I'm going to just kind of gloss over, it's 401 units, it's 29.356 acres. It's in the RM14 zoning district, which allows 14 units to the acre. The proposal is for 13.66 units per acre. We've covered parking issues, we've covered access issues, where it fits in with the site plan. So all the components that needed to be approved prior to the site plan have already been approved by this board, or recommended approval to the village council by this board. Again, it's over here on the west side of the master plan. This is the proposed site plan with the dog walk or dog park on the southwest corner. The 26 buildings are distributed across the site. Access will be off of Tuttle Boulevard and Erica Boulevard, which will provide access out to State Road 7. There's a roundabout coming in to the development from Erica and Tuttle Boulevards. The parcel size is 29.356 acres in size, which exceeds the minimum of 3 acres for RM14 zone property. The property is approximately 1,252.51 feet wide and exceeds the minimum parcel width of 200 feet. The proposed buildings meet the required setbacks for the zoning districts, and the proposed site plan provides 49.62% of the site as pervious area, which exceeds the minimum of 49% as required by village code. The parking requirements we covered, that they meet it if and since the variance has been recommended for approval. They did provide additional tandem spaces over and above what code requires. They only need 143 of the 163 provided to meet the code requirements, so there's actually an extra 20 spaces in the tandem. The proposed site plan complies with all aspects of the village's landscape code, with the exception of the waiver that's being requested on the north end. And the applicant is proposing to construct 15 three-story and 11 two-story townhouse-style multifamily buildings with a maximum building height as measured by village code of 32 feet, which falls within the height limitation of 32 feet within this zoning district. The way they all have peaked roofs, and we measure to the roof deck on the peaked roofs, because peaked roofs are desired over flat roofs. Flat roofs with parapets are somewhat ugly, so it's a better product by allowing the additional height as defined by code. But as defined by village code, it still really is meeting the 32-foot maximum. The landscape plans, we discussed that they're asking for a waiver on the north buffer, but the landscape plans are to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board, and a recommendation is to be given to the Village Council. The village staff has reviewed all of the requirements of the village code regarding landscaping, and with the exception of the waiver, they meet that. They screen the service areas, air conditioners, and things of that nature. And this is the overall site landscape plan. It is not at a scale where anybody watching at home would be able to read it. However, the commissioners had packets which had blow-ups on them that made it legible. And if anybody from the public watching at home is interested, they can come in and look at a copy at the village offices. Having said that, we're going to move on to the architectural and design features, which the commission also is a recommending body to the village council. You're familiar with the criteria as far as the architecture. So there's, I believe, 6 different types of buildings, as well as amenity buildings. I'm just going to quickly go through those buildings. This is building type 1. This would be building type 2, the elevations. Village staff has looked at it, and the designs are attractive. The proportions are balanced as the code dictates. These are very attractive peak roof buildings. Type 3, type 4, type 5, and this is, I believe, the clubhouse elevations, which the applicant has discussed is approximately 10,000 square feet and into 2 stories. This is the pool pavilion. And the male, I believe this is male, no, this is the gazebo. And then the male kiosk. And the materials are shown on each of the drawings, materials and colors. Village staff is recommending approval with the condition, of course, that all of the developer's agreement and the parking variance and the landscape waiver are approved. There is a condition of approval. I had it earlier. Oh, the condition of approval that, which is going to be added prior to village council, that if village staff determines after a certain percentage of the apartment units are rented, that they will have to construct the additional parking on site. So If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but as I said, village staff is recommending approval. The applicant is here if you want to hear their presentation.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
And while she's approaching, I'll ask you if there are any ex parte communications with regard to this 19-019 that need to be disclosed. Thank you.
I'll go quickly since we've seen a lot of this already. Allie Palmer with Urban Design Kildare Studios, once again representing TLI. We made it to the site plan. So, as Kevin mentioned, we are proposing 401 units, 346 standard apartments, and 55 townhomes. This is the site plan before you, and I'm just going to go through some of the intricacies of the site itself that we haven't seen yet. So access to the site will be provided by Tuttle Boulevard or Erica Boulevard, depending on which direction you're coming from. If you're coming off of Southern Boulevard, you'll take Tuttle Boulevard down. If you're coming off of State Road 7, 441, you'll take Erica Boulevard west to the site. Once you come into the main entry, you'll be guided through a circle where you can go into the left or right gates into the community, and there will also be guest access as well. We are also proposing an emergency-only access, similar to how we did in Pod 3, going into the Pod 7 charter school, the north parking lot area, and you'll see that as part of their site plan application as well. And that was to satisfy the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. As far as recreation, I know that you saw this before, but just to refresh your memory, we are proposing nearly 3 acres on site of what we call required recreation area. We are also providing a few other areas, as I mentioned previously, such as the dog run and the dog park and the volleyball. That actually is above and beyond the 3 acres. And again, if for some reason we do have to build the parking, those will go away. However, they're not part of the required, but on day one, they will be built and they will be provided as an amenity to the residents. We are also providing monies towards recreation through the village for 1.82 acres of rec. And then we are also providing our public recreation on Pod 8, as you had seen previously, and that is 5.23 acres. That will be a part of Pod 8. Talking about recreation, this is that 10,000 square foot clubhouse, which I think Kevin had pulled up previously before as well. It's 2 stories, very architecturally pleasing to the eye, in my opinion. It'll be treated with the same facade elements as the buildings, with the stone features and the awning features, and very similar window treatments as well, and the columns in the back supporting the porch chairs. The apartment buildings, which I think Kevin brought up already as well, but just to give you, these are the different views of all the front elevations for the 4 different there's 5 different building types, but one of them is very similar, so I didn't put it up twice. However, there's the smaller buildings that have a bit of a shorter facade, and then one of the buildings which has a different roof line, which is up there on the top, and then the larger 2 buildings, which are over on the right side of the screen, all which will have those one-car garages on the first floor, and will be an option as an amenity to the residents. And then you have the townhome building, which, as I mentioned, there are 11 of these for a total of 55 units. Each townhome building will have 5 units. Each of those units will have 3 bedrooms. And apparently that concludes my site plan presentation. Aren't you happy it was real nice and quick? If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, no comments from the public. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
No comments or questions.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Markey? Okay, I have none. Motion, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve application 19-019 as is.
Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
If we could, before we adjourn the meeting, I just want to call to your attention, the meeting date for the next meeting is on your agenda. But Warren will be sending tomorrow, we're going to send an email soliciting your availability not only for that day, because that is the Tuesday that immediately precedes Thanksgiving, but also for a rescheduled December date. If you want to jot that down, it'd be December 16th. That'd be a Monday night rather than your normal Tuesday. Lauren will send an email, but if you could respond as promptly as you can so that we can confirm quorum for both meetings, that'd be great.
So then if you postpone this to December 16, that means that will be a December meeting?
No, we'll have both meetings. So
At
the
the
November
same-
will happen as scheduled,
Okay.
assuming we can get quorum.
Mhm.
And then December's meeting will be bounced earlier to that December 16th date.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And there will be an email.
The 26th is the Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah. Okay.
So Lauren will send an email just to each of you, and if you could respond, and to the other commissioners as well. Thank you.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great.